Okay, first of all, welcome, to CSR Live's Expert Talk, and thank you so much for being with us here today. And we're going to start this interaction, but for our audiences, can you just give a little brief introduction about you and the organization?
Sure, Varun. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm Somdatta Chatterjee. I lead corporate partnerships for both CSR and employee giving at Give India. I've been with Give India for the last 3.5 years. Give India is into the business of giving for the last 21 years, founded in 2000 by Venkat Krishnan. It's one of the most trusted giving platforms in the country. For all these years, we've been working with over 150 corporate partners to manage their employee giving programs, CSR. We manage a monthly giving program. We are the only platform in the country today which has a subscription giving program. Of course, we have a lot of crowdfunding platforms taking cue, and they're also starting their monthly giving programs, but we are one of the pioneers. We also have a crowdfunding platform called Fundraisers. In the year 2018, we merged with Let's Change, one of the crowdfunding platforms in the country, and today we have co-branded as Fundraisers, Give India Fundraisers. So all these years we've been working across all these work streams. Last year, when the pandemic hit us, we started this initiative called India COVID Response Fund, and through that we've been working across multiple interventions, and we have been directly implementing projects as well, right from working with frontline workers to procure source PPE kits, to working with NGOs to figure out end beneficiaries who had lost their jobs due to lockdown to provide cash relief. And this year we have got down into the entire working with the healthcare ecosystem to procure oxygen concentrators, cylinders, OGPs, all of that. So yeah, that's pretty much the gamut of work that we're doing.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. So before moving on to other questions, I want to know, because I saw you're an alumni from ISB, and plus you have worked in a lot of corporate sectors before coming to Give India. So what exactly was it that made you take this decision of leaving all that corporate structure and coming and working in an organization that is more about giving? Not that corporates are not, but the major difference that you see basically in an organization like Give India or any other corporates. So was it something that you saw, or what's the story behind it?
So I always wanted, it'll sound very cliche, but I always wanted to do something which is more closer to heart, which is helping people. I've been into sales, business development, account management all my life. I've done marketing from ISB, like you rightly said. And I was decent in selling products. That could be a fashion product, that could be loyalty marketing. But I never identified with the project or the product that I was selling. In my previous stint with Agio, I would be telling you what kind of fashion suits your personality and what color you should wear, which will enhance how you look towards the world. I would do it, but within inside, I was never convinced about what I was telling you, because I might not believe in fashion. I would not wear clothes just because somebody can come and tell me that so red is the color of your personality. So today, I can tell you successfully that what I am pitching to you, what I'm selling to you, is something I believe with, I identify with. So yeah, so that's long story short. Giving is something I always wanted to do. I never had the guts or the courage to plunge or jump in, because the perks like salary and all is always very high and lucrative in for-profit corporatish job. But then I got a chance to meet Atul, who's the CEO of Give India. He's also the CEO founder of Nudge Foundation, and the kind of work he has done and the kind of teams he has led, and his journey just moved me, and I just took the plunge. And I can tell you, I don't regret it at all.
That's great. That's great. We need more people like you who believe in such ideologies and are, so active in providing back to the society. So that's great. So what I really want to know right now is that, after the pandemic hit us, the lives of everybody has changed all around the globe. But seeing what Give India has been doing for our nation, for our country altogether, has been really inspiring. So which project, during the pandemic has been the most challenging for you guys, or which exact, like, can you, like, I know it'll be tough to name one or two, but like for you guys, which has been the most challenging one till now?
So there have been two waves, right? Wave one, I think the challenge was to even understand the mammoth of problem that was ahead of us. And we work with over 2,000 verified vetted credible partners, NGO partners. So the challenge was, how can we fundraise to support them, to help them? That was wave one. And how quickly we could adapt as an organization, how agile we were, how fast we could create fundraisers, use our networks, tap into corporates, reach out to the HNIs that we know, and see how quickly we can fundraise to help our NGO partners who are working on ground. Wave two, I think the challenge is very, very different for all of us, right? It's way more personal. This year we have give Indians who are going through the trauma. We have so many of our employees who have lost parents, who have lost siblings, children, to the pandemic, right? And who are severely ill. So yes, one is this year it's very personal. Second, I think this year as a team, because we have worked very cohesively in the first wave, this year we knew that we have to get going right from day one, and the task is way more bigger. This time the healthcare infrastructure issue that we are trying to support the government with, work with the civil society, that's a much larger problem to solve. So I think the challenge is how fast we can grapple with our own personal issues and come together as a collective and work with all sorts of partners, and help the nation together. So I think that's where we are.
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree with it. So you guys would have had different projects ongoing, right? Like you guys must be having multiple projects with multiple NGO partners, and how different is it to carry out a project on your own, and how different is it to actually partner with an NGO and then look over, how the things are going and how the output is getting delivered, or is it efficient enough or not? So what exactly would you say is the difference here?
So when so I think both, like you rightly said, are very different. One is the work when you have an NGO partner on your platform. First you need to figure out if they are a verified credible organization. So doing due diligence for the organization is the first step, which we are known for. And then verifying the project, going into the details of the project. What is the ground need? Who are the beneficiaries you're supporting? How will the monitoring happen? How is the once the funding reaches the NGO, how are they translating the funding into actual delivery? And how are the beneficiaries getting impacted? So that's the process we generally follow. That's the work we generally do, and we have been doing all through the years. But implementation in non-COVID times and COVID times itself is different. In non-COVID times, these are simpler projects, right? You have a project which says, I need to feed X number of people. So I need to collaborate with partners to ensure the raw materials are collected, the kitchens are producing the meals, I have logistics to deliver the meals, and the end beneficiary is getting the meal. But in pandemic, in wave two, the kind of work we are doing, it's so new, it's so different. Even government is doing this for the first time. Like oxygen generation plants, oxygen concentrators, cylinders getting imported in massive scales, and figuring out various kinds of hospitals in different nooks and corners of the country, figuring out logistics, sending it to them, figuring out if those hospitals have the capacity to even absorb it. That in itself is a mammoth task and very different in nature. So I think we are in it together. All of us are learning. It's first time for everyone. The world has seen COVID for the first time. So I think as the government, as civil society, as any other organizations are pooling in resources, coming together, tapping in the right networks to figure out implementation, Give India is also doing the same. So that's the difference. Here we are getting our hands dirty. We are
I
figuring out how to do it.
I can absolutely understand what you're saying, because this is actually a very new thing for all of us, because even I don't think anybody was prepared for it. Although we have had pandemics before, but like I don't think anybody was prepared for such a thing that is to so suddenly, that I don't think any government all over the world was prepared for it. But now I think we are coping up pretty well. And as you correctly said, there are so many things that we need to focus on, even on logistical support. Even like if you go for the oxygen tanks or plants, or even if how to make them reach the hospitals, if they are getting distributed efficiently, because there is so many problems everywhere. Anyway, that's great. So moving on, while we are on the topic of governments and how it is new for everybody, yeah, Give India definitely would have collaborated with governments as well on state level and central level to provide help or support or any ongoing project. So How was your experience when you collaborate with government instead of organizations or NGOs? What difference exactly do you see there, especially different state governments or central government in general?
So I think it's a trick question, but I'll answer it. So it's collaborating with government gives you a far higher reach, right? Because governments have contacts with, like for example, we worked with the Delhi government to supply oxygen cylinders, which cater to so many hospitals, right? And because the government personnel, the government team is working directly with all these hospitals, they have ears on the ground, right? You have NGOs which are mapped to certain hospitals, but when you're working with the state government in a way is dealing with pretty much all the hospitals that's under the wing, right? So your reach is far higher. You have real time updates on what are the requirements coming from these hospitals, and then you can immediately work with vendors, with partners, to ensure they're getting delivered in the right place. And you also have officials overseeing the project, right? So you can be rest assured that the equipments that are getting delivered to the hospitals are putting to right use, because instantly you get videos out, you get testimonials, you get to see the equipments being used on patients. So all of that happens really quick and really fast when you're working with the government. So I can tell you, during pandemic, partnering with a central agency like the government is a very good way to go, because it's much more faster and efficient. So that has been the experience. Having said that, our NGO partners like Doctors for You, Ekam Foundation, and others who are working on the ground on the healthcare ecosystem, they're doing a tremendous job by going across states, across cities, figuring out the need and working. So I can say the government has the reach, but the NGO partners that we are working with, they have tremendous willpower and intent to make it happen.
So if I just put it simply for the audience, basically the reach becomes larger when you work with a government sector or a state government for that say, because you exactly know what is needed and where it is needed and at what time. Because
Absolutely.
if you're because they already have the data, because it's their job to have the data, but it becomes easier for you guys as well to deliver on time and do it more efficiently. Makes sense. Perfect. So, as you're the head of CSR in Give India and you're heading that responsibility so well, and we also here are very focused on the CSR aspect of our country. So, I would like to know that what difference, first of all, a very general question, what difference do you see in the operating of such corporates or even organizations like Give India before the mandate of the 2014 of the CSR mandate, before it and after it? Do you see a significant difference in the working or the operation, or things are just going as they used to?
So if I have to talk about Give India started to make Indians more giving. Our motive was definitely not to make corporate like corporate CSR, right? The motive is to make Indians give at least 2% of their salaries towards charity. So building the culture of charitable giving was what like that was the reason why Give India was started. So if you see all the programs that we did, right from workplace giving to starting the first crowdfunding platform called iGive, way before Milap, Keto, or any other crowdfunding platforms had launched. Every project of ours, even monthly giving, one time giving, everything that was there on our platform was to enhance and encourage retail giving. The idea was to make giving so simple, convenient, transparent, trustworthy, that any individual, if you align with a cause, if you like an NGO, if you appreciate and support the cause that the NGO is working towards, you should have a channel that allows you to support them financially. And that was the motive in which Give India was launched, and Give India operated all these years and continue to do so. With the CSR law of 2013, what happened, it became mandated. But corporates in their own capacity used to get involved in CSR projects even before that. Even before that, they were part of philanthropic activities of building, enhancing communities against around the places where the manufacturing units are. You would see the Tatas, the Birlas, all the big powerhouses in the country. They were always involved in philanthropic activities. It's just that from 2013 onwards, it got more regulated, it got more documented, it got mandated. So now you have a whole bunch of people getting into CSR, which is good, I feel, because a lot of good things happen when you mandate stuff around it. So I guess good has happened. So Give India has also evolved with the CSR law changing. So now we not just focus into retail giving and individuals giving, we're also working with our corporate partners to support them in providing them information about NGOs that are doing credible work. A lot of NGOs that we work with, Varun, are so small, are working in such nooks and corners of the country, they don't have the budget to even market and promote them. So they will never reach out to a Tata or a Z to even tell them that, we are doing a credible work. So we become their voice. We take their proposals, their projects, table it to the CSR committees, and ensure that their work get heard and get funded. So I think that's the role we are playing now.
And I very strongly agree with 2-3 points that you made. Firstly, that I think people are getting more recognized for the work they are doing after the mandate, because now it's become more transparent. People are also paying a little more attention to it after knowing exactly what CSR is. And I always believe, working in this field, I've always believed that corporate social responsibility is more like individual social responsibility, because everybody needs to give back to the society in some way or the other. At least they should. But a lot of times, a lot of people argue that it's a very cliche argument that people say that we have already been paying the taxes, we already do our bit for our nation, and if there is no corruption and the corruption is at zero, then we already are doing what we can by paying the regulated taxes or whatever the government tells us to do. So what exactly do you think, what argument would you, as a person who has been working in CSR for so long, would put forward against what people say, that if we are paying taxes, why exactly do we need to put in extra money from our salary or our earnings again back to the society?
Right.
I can't hear you. Just a second. I can't hear you. Your voice. Hello.
I was getting a call there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Can you can,
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So I have a very philosophical way of responding to this. Not too sure if the viewers would align.
No,
Um,
please go ahead. We have all
uh,
kinds of views.
so there is so you and I, the place where we are today, I strongly feel it's by virtue of luck. If I was born in the family of my cook or my maid, my life would be very different. Just by the virtue of a chance of being born in a certain family, we are so much more privileged as compared to 40-50% of people around us. Everybody who's walking on the road or sleeping on the road today has equal or more capability than you, given a chance. You got the chance, they didn't. Yes, we pay the taxes. Yes, it's a separate argument that what should come out of the taxes and how, as individuals, as citizens, we should get benefited, how first world countries provide healthcare security, education for children, and a lot of other perks with the taxes that income paying people give to the government. That's a separate debate. But if we just look at how much we consume on a daily basis, how much we need for a respectable, decent life, fulfilling what we want to do, and how much we are hoarding, and how much the others don't have, the gap is so much higher. Which is why we say give 2% of your salaries. Just calculate, anybody. In the last 2 years, Varun, when we have been at home, when we have not stepped out to watch a movie, to go out, eat food, to meet friends, to do any international travel, how much have we saved? We are still continuing to work from our home. You and I have a cushy job which we can do from our homes. But I have stopped my maid from coming because it's COVID times and her coming to my home is dangerous. She doesn't have a way of working from home. So if we don't support her with giving, now this is over and above the tax that I'm paying, right? But as an ecosystem, if we don't support her, where will she go? So giving is not how do I say, giving is not because you pay taxes and you don't need to do. Giving is how we need to uplift the the people who are in a disadvantaged position today, not because they chose to. It was because of birth. It was because how we are set up as a society. What government, what infrastructures are doing to help them is separate, but as individuals, this is our responsibility, moral responsibility.
So I exactly get your point, and if I just if I try to just put it in brief, is basically if we are in a state of giving and we are at a position where we can actually provide for people who are not really going through a good time right now, and not because of the situations they created for themselves, but because of the chaotic situations that are already present. And if we're at a position where we can help them, we definitely should. And I absolutely agree with your point. And I have always felt like, it's more like, every citizen has a social responsibility that they should, give back to the society in any way they can. Even an effort, small effort, makes a lot of difference. Even if it's not very financially big, or if there's a lot of money involved or something, but even a small effort can make a lot of change. Absolutely. And one more thing, because it really intrigued me, how you said that Give India even provides a platform for people who really want to come ahead and do something for the society, but they don't know how exactly. A lot of people really want to do something, but they're not sure how to go about it because they don't really have a platform. So doing that is great that Give India is providing a proper platform for those people to come ahead and make a difference, try to make a difference. Great. So Samantha, what exactly would you say is the future aim for Give India, or what is the bigger picture for Give India, down the lines, like 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to take. But what do you guys aim at?
Um, that's a tough one. Actually, not. I think we discuss this every day in our internal meetings and huddles. I think one part of the journey which we have already crossed is to be a brand, for a lack of a better word, who's trustworthy, credible. People feel the confidence to to use our platform, to use Give India as a partner for giving initiatives. I think that is something we have earned in the last 2 decades. But right now, the kind of work we are doing, the kind of, so just to give you perspective, last year with COVID, India COVID Response Fund, we channelized over 200 crores supporting good 250 NGO partners. um, PM Cares would have raised, I think, 150 crores from just Google Pay channel. And if we add up all the CSR funds, all the other support they would have got, it would be hundreds and thousands of crores. And that's the kind of donations you need to collectively help the country, right? So what we are channelizing right now is just a drop in the ocean. Right now we are in the frame of working with good 300-350 crores that are coming from our CSR partners, our foundation partners, HNIs, UHNIs, retail donations, and everything is going towards COVID relief. That is just a drop in the ocean. If we have to put together work, solve the COVID issue in the country, the healthcare infrastructure in the country, we need at least 1,000 crore to start with. So if that is today, 10 years down the line, it's just, COVID has taken so many people back into poverty, right? We have to work, we are there to alleviate poverty from the country. So we will
Well,
not stop
no
before
hidden
that
fact
happens.
that our economy has taken a major hit, mostly in the first wave than in the second wave. But yeah, it has taken a very major hit, and as you correctly said, a lot of people have taken like 10 steps back, who are having a decent daily wage, or people who are actually working on a day-to-day basis, but they are now they're out of work, and we really need to do something about it. And the way you guys are progressing and going forward, I'm sure that your aim is going to be achieved in no time, and you're going to be helping people on larger magnitude every year. So, saying that, before concluding the interaction, I always ask these set of questions to my guests who come on the show. But for you, I have this one very special question, because I really wanted to know, because you have been in the field for so long. What exactly would you suggest should change in the CSI infrastructure of our country to make it more better and efficient? In the coming years, because you have seen it all, you have been in the space, you're working in it. So how exactly do you think we can make it more efficient, and make the whole thing more organized and systematic, and how can we improve it?
This is straight from my heart, and it's a very personal opinion. Because it's mandated by law, and you have a board, you have a committee, you have various stakeholders internally, and this is especially for corporates, that we need to get approvals before a project gets signed up. More often than not, corporates are very they get stuck with their focus areas, or projects that come top down, projects that are closer to the management, or probably projects recommended by management, right? They may or may not be efficient ones. They may or may not be the best ones. There could be better projects out there which are in need of funding way more. I think there has to be a, a situation when corporates can go beyond their own focus areas, or such hurdles that come in the way of operating business, and probably look at projects, or evaluate projects purely on merit and the intent, because everybody starts small, right? Everybody, that it's the first year for every project that's doing well. Even Give India, it was day one for Give India one day. We are thankful to our investors in day one that today we are what we are. So so just taking that leap of faith on credible good projects which has potential by big houses, big corporates, is the need of the hour. It's very, very required. And not always go with brands, go with big muscles.
Absolutely. I think this is a problem that we all see, because a lot of time big corporates, even though they really want to do something, they are more result driven, that they can show on the paper, that we gave this much amount of money to this, specific organization, and we got this back in result. There are a lot of NGOs on the ground who are working, and but they are not recognized, and they do actual good work. So absolutely, I agree to your point. So any last message for our audiences or the people who are watching us right now? You can just go ahead and talk to them directly before we conclude the introduction.
No, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody. Like, we've been working for the last 6 weeks almost on India COVID Response Fund, and so many people have come together and contributed to our retail fundraisers. So many corporates have come together, pooled in their CSR budgets. Foundations have come together. Everybody is pooling in everything that they can, and it's very, very overwhelming to see how everybody is coming together. So a big thank you to all our donors, supporters, and everybody who's following and encouraging us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Samadata. And this was really a very inspiring interview for me and the whole team of CSR Live here. And we hope that you guys keep doing the great work you guys are already, and you guys progress more and more every day. So thank you so much for joining us here. And
Thank
we
you.
hope to see you soon, back here very, very soon. So thank you so much.